we discover why Melbourne is the home of Australian comedy.
You met me in my dreams last night, same dark eyes, familiar sight, broken words I've dreamt 100 times. But you were strange and staggered too, like what you said I scripted through. I guess this means I'm getting over you. Why do I still dream of you? Why do you still come? Is it to remind me of the evil things I've done? Why am I still falling by your ghostly memory? And why do I still hope you think of me?
Peter Rosethorn in the heart of the Melbourne cabaret circuit. This is his memorable impersonation of E.T. And this is how most of the new comedy stars learned their craft, living on their wits in front of a live audience.
And what about those laugh lines? Please take my wife! What about those alligator skin elbows?
Melbourne's supposed to be dull, yet cabaret thrives here, better than anywhere else in the country. It's produced some of our greatest comedians, and the rest of Australia is wondering why.
Why Melbourne, do you think?
Are you asking me why Melbourne exists?
It's a silly question. Why is it there? It's because it is.
I don't know why Melbourne is particularly funny. I think you'd have to come here to find out. Is this going to Canada, this show?
Why Melbourne? That's a very 60-minute question, Brad. Why Melbourne?
Because it is. And why is this a glass? Because it was made that way. But, oh, that was your water. I'm sorry, Brad.
This is my own theory. It's a personal theory, and it could be completely wrong. I think it's to do with the fact that we haven't got leagues clubs in Victoria. The fact that people can't go and get some, you know, some prawns with a cocktail sauce for $2 and watch Matt Munro or Shirley Bassey or something for $5 means that there's been a need for alternative venues and entertainment in Melbourne.
Sydney's a bit glibber than Melbourne. In Sydney, they just like to have a good laugh. And in Melbourne, they like more depth, you know. Who do they think they are?
I think the smarter comedy always came out of Melbourne, the intellectually clever stuff. The raunchier, more debauched comedy tended to come out of Sydney.
Okay, who took this young lady's clothes? What? You didn't have to pick up a pair of my socks as well, did you?
I think it's because of the weather, I think.
No, that's true. Everyone
well,
said
people
that.
spend more time inside and they talk instead of playing tennis, I think. So
Yeah.
I think Rod Quantock said that once, that's why people were able to write good monologues, because we sit and think about it a lot more than going out and doing it, I suppose.
Melbourne's a great place to be if you want to listen to your arteries hardening.
Melbourne's a little bit more cerebral in its entertainment. I mean, it's got something to do with climate, I think.
I think the climate actually has a lot to do with it. I'm a great believer that cold climates are inducive to creativity. Yeah. I think Sydney's much too hot to be creative in.
It's still the funniest place in Australia.
From some distant I can hear a mother's call. Come on home.
You can argue that humour is a comedian's defence against boredom, and maybe the only way to live in Melbourne is to laugh at it.
I drive a new path so I won't have to pass the place where you first held my hand. And I'm just trying to get back to normal, not too stiff, too formal. What do I do with...
And if boredom does create humour today, then the early 60s must have created near hysteria. This is the environment that nurtured the current comedy stars. The same environment that drove a young university student from Camberwell into comedy.
Welcome back to the McPherson's backyard for the final of the Bell Street Backyard Cricket Championships.
If the new comedy has achieved anything, it's taught us to recognise and laugh at what's in our own backyards.
Let's take this opportunity, Richie, to take a look at some of the classic catches this summer.
First, this catch of Dugan's bat, shed, wall, barbecue, esky, caught off the roof for 4.
Not just in Melbourne, but everywhere. That's what's made it special.
People in Broome or Carnarvon or people in Charters Towers who've never seen you before coming cold into their living room and convincing these people that they should laugh at you of all people, is a tricky business, and it means you've got to have something new and funny every week. That's hard. People, I've just received some very disturbing news.
Chief, I demand the code of science.
That's right, Max. I think we've
Whatever they've been doing it right. And they're confident there'll be new shows and bigger audiences. Coming up next, the future for Australian comedy. Comedy boom of 1989. There's never been a period in Australian humour like it. Somehow, amid the greatest upheaval in the history of Australian television, comedy not only survived, but prospered. And in a world where there's often little to laugh about, comedians like Mark Mitchell prove just how much we need comedy to survive.
One of the great pleasures in life. You can't eat all the time or you'll end up fat, and I'd hate that to happen. And so what else is left? I mean, playing sport, there's golf. There's tennis, there's other sporting pursuits, and when that's all said and done, when you're too tired, playing sport and eating, what is there left? Laughing is better than anything I know.
On claim 3, I want wear and tear allowance on my gold jewellery, with particular reference to my ring.
I don't think you can be compensated for ring damage.
Well, I want wear and tear on my moustache. I think people always have a need to laugh, and I think they always will laugh, provided something's funny. I think television stations have found out that comedy works for them and that comedy rates. Comedy's here to stay, and it'll evolve. We'll see sketch comedy, but we'll see a lot of other sorts as well.
Advice to young people: should I become a comedian? You don't become one, you are one or you're not, I think. I don't think you say, well, I have some career options, I might become a comedian.
There's a great fun in the car, at the lights. You know, sitting there and look at the person next to you in the car and go... And that's a lot of fun, but this character, you know, when I was young, I used to believe that...
More laughs shortly with...
You know, it's a relief to come to Australia. There are no cathedrals you have to visit, no museums worth looking at, except the one with the stuffed horse in Melbourne.
Are we rolling? We're on. This is tape 3, hard-hitting, incisive examination of Australian comedy.
When I first met you, you were very, very famous for your Bert Newton impersonation, which I must admit was a classic. And probably still is.
Thank you, Brad. That's very kind. That's fabulous, Brad. It really is. I suppose the initial impact of that was that there were very few people doing Bert. There was Paul Jennings, of course, but for the most part, there was no one else, Brad.
And what about Kevin Bloody Wilson? He's terrifically good, I think.
You can have whatever it is you want to have. You can be whatever it is you want to be. You've only got to know what it is.
Thanks, Brad. That was it.
Don't worry.
And I can't remember